Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the Memorial Day weekend. We only have a few weeks left of the fourth quarter, and we'll be finishing up with Macbeth. If you take a look on your screen today, I want to focus on scenes 2 and 3 of Act 4, and I want us to focus on how Shakespeare is developing Macbeth's character, as well as how, through the development of Macbeth's character, we can see how the theme, the central idea of ambition, is also being developed. So before we go into scene 2, I kind of want to briefly recap some of the images that we saw, those apparitions in scene 1. They're very important to the development of the plot from this point forward. So the first apparition, or the first image that Macbeth saw, was a head with a helmet on, and it tells Macbeth that he should be careful of Macduff. Um, and all Macbeth says is, thank you for the warning. He doesn't seem to be moved by this warning. The second apparition is a child that's covered with blood, and it tells Macbeth that no man born to a woman can harm him. And this helps to build Macbeth's confidence in himself. And he begins to grab hold of the idea that nothing could ever come back to haunt him or come and take the throne. In the previous act, when he was hallucinating and he saw Banquo's ghost, what he was fearing is that Banquo's son, Fleance, is going to come back and he's going to try to get the throne. That's why he wanted the third murderer to come in and make sure that the other murderers he had hired were doing their job. So this apparition here of the child covered with blood really helps Macbeth to feel safe and confident in his role as king. The third apparition is another child with a crown on his head and a branch in his hand. It tells Macbeth that he will not be defeated until Burnwood comes to Dungeon Hill. This is important, and it kind of doesn't make sense, and the audience during Shakespeare's time really wouldn't understand what this means. I also have some visuals here for you of what Macbeth saw. Here's that apparition with the helmet, the head and helmet, the bloody child, and then another with that branch on their hand, holding the branch. And Macbeth leaves the scene again feeling very confident. He says, "Well, every person is born of a woman, so I don't have to fear any man, including Macduff." And then he says, "This part here, when one wood meets the hill, branches, trees, they don't move. That doesn't make sense. So the I guess geography isn't going to change." And he's absolutely right. So this causes him to forget about his fears. However, we learn at the end of the scene that just to make sure, he prefers to destroy Macduff. And one of the reasons really is because he's angry. He's angry that Macduff has chosen to leave the kingdom and defy Macbeth. So he wants to kill off his family just out of defiance, right? He wants to show Macduff that he shouldn't mess with the king. So let's take a look at scene 2. It starts on page 49 of your script. And here we have Lady Macduff and her son and Ross. I want to clear up one other misconception that some of you were doing or were having, because I'm sure some of you were choosing to Google some of the answers. Ross is not the murderer. He works for the king, King Duncan, and then he continues to do so for Macbeth until he has that conversation with the old man. In the movie version, they use the character that plays Ross as the murderer, but that's not the case. That's not true to the original text of Macbeth. So let's take a look at this scene together. I'll stop a couple of points to explain a few things, and then you'll continue to work on this on your own. So enter Lady Macduff. Keep in mind that Lady Macduff is another part Macduff is the Thane of Fife, so this is where she is not close to where Macbeth's castle is.
What had he done to make him fly the land?
Must have patience, madam.
He had none. His flight was madness. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors.
You know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear.
Wisdom. To leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion, and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly? He loves us not. He wants the natural touch, for the poor wren, the most diminutive of birds, will fight her young ones in her nest against the owl. All is the fear, and nothing is the love. As little is the wisdom, where the flight so runs against all reason.
So here, Lady Macduff is really upset at her husband for leaving, and Ross is trying to explain to her, listen, he did it for good reason. Lady Macduff says, how could it be out of wisdom that my husband left, to leave his wife, his children, his house, and his titles in a place so unsafe that he himself flees it? Well, this is a really good argument from Lady Macduff. We know that Macduff has gone to England to try and speak to the king and form some sort of ally with Malcolm and Donalbain to fight and get Scotland back from Macbeth. Lady Macduff says it doesn't make any sense. He's leaving everything that's his behind. He's leaving it at the exact place that he knows isn't safe. She says that he's not doing it out of love. He lacks the natural instinct to protect his family. Even the fragile wern, the smallest of birds, will fight against the owl when it threatens her young ones in the nest. He's running away as everything to do with fear and nothing to do with love. And since it is so unreasonable for him to run away, it has nothing to do with wisdom either. I really want us to highlight this, to annotate this, because it's such a contrast to a certain extent to what Lady Macbeth says about her husband. So this text here is a little too big for us. So similar to Lady Macbeth, right? I'm just going to put L for Lady. So Lady Macduff accuses her husband of being a coward. Again, this is something that Lady Macbeth does as well. Now we're going to see, though, a difference in Lady Macduff when compared to Lady Macbeth. She says that she would do anything to protect her family. Lady Macbeth really doesn't go into that, right? She says that she'll do anything as much as killing her own child. That's very different from Lady Macduff. So take a look at what Ross says to try and comfort Lady Macduff and help her to see that her husband, Macduff, is acting with his family in mind.
Dearest coz, I pray you school yourself. But for your husband, he is noble, wise, judicious, and best knows the fits of the season. I dare not speak much further. But cruel are the times when we are traitors and do not know ourselves, when we hold rumor from what we fear, yet know not what we fear, but float upon a wild and violent sea each way and move. I take my leave of you. Shall not be long, but I'll be here again. Things at the worst will cease, or else climb upward to what they were before. My pretty cousin, blessing upon you.
Fathered he is, and yet he's fatherless.
I am so much a fool. Should I stay longer, it would be my disgrace and your discomfort. I take my leave at once.
Sarah, your father's dead. And what will you do now? How will you live?
So Lady Macduff is not comforted at all by what Ross tells her. If I bring you back a little bit, he goes and he uses specific adjectives to describe Macduff. He goes and he says, your husband is noble, he's wise, he's judicious, and he understands what the times require. So these are all positive qualities that Ross sees in Macduff. However, when he leaves, Lady Macduff turns to her son and she says, your father is dead. I don't know what we're going to do, how we're going to live, but your father is dead. And this is more figurative, obviously, than literal. Macduff is still alive, but for Lady Macduff, her husband is dead. He left, so for her, he's no longer in the picture. And take a look at what the son says, and notice the imagery that they, or the extended metaphor, I guess I should say, that they use with birds.
As birds do, Mother.
What, with worms and flies?
With what I get, I mean, and so do they.
Poor bird. Thou'st never fear the net nor lime, the pitfall, nor the gin.
Why should I, Mother? Poor birds they are not set for. My father is not dead, for all you're saying.
Yes, he is dead. How wilt thou do for a father?
Nay, how will you do for a husband?
Why, I can buy me 20 at any market.
Then you'll buy 'em to sell again.
Thou speak'st with all thy wit, and yet, i'faith, with wit enough for thee.
Was my father a traitor, Mother?
Aye, that he was.
What is a traitor?
Why, one that swears and lies.
And be all traitors that do so?
Every one that does so is a traitor and must be hanged.
And must they all be hanged that swear and lie?
Every one.
Who must hang them?
Why, the honest men.
Then the liars and swearers are fools, for there are liars and swearers enough to beat the honest men and hang up them.
So Macduff's son is pretty wise, and he goes and he makes sure that his mother understands. He knows perfectly well that his father is still alive, and he says, how are you going to make do? What are you going to do for a husband? And Lady Macduff says, I can get as many husbands as I possibly want. It's not that's not a problem for me. And then he transitions into this idea of a traitor. Is my father a traitor? And Lady Macduff says yes he is, because he lies and he swears. And Macduff's son wants to know, well, who's in charge of dictating, of sentencing these people that, according to Lady Macduff, should be hanged for swearing and lying? And Macduff's son realizes that there are more liars in the world, there are more dishonest people in the world than there are honest people. And the irony here is that one group that's smaller than the other is able to defeat it, right? The people that are honest are only a few, yet they have more power over those that swear and lie, over those that are dishonest. And from here, we're going to kind of pick up on this idea, or I guess the comparison between Macbeth and Macduff. So let's listen a little bit more to the scene, and then we'll go into the class work that I have assigned for you today.
Now, God help thee, poor monkey. But how wilt thou do for a father?
If he were dead, you'd weep for him. If you would not, it were a good sign that I should quickly have a new father.
Poor prattler, how thou talk'st. Bless you, fair dame. I am not to you known, though in your state of honor I am perfect. I doubt some danger does approach you nearly. If you will take a homely man's advice, be not found here. Hence with your little ones. To fright you thus, methinks I am too savage. To do worse to you were fell cruelty, which is too nigh your person. Heaven preserve you. I dare abide no longer.
So here, a strange person enters the scene. We have this messenger. We really don't know who he could be, but he comes in with a warning for Lady Macduff. He goes and he says, "You don't know me, but I know that you're an important person. I'm afraid something dangerous is coming toward you. If you'll take a simple man's advice, don't be here when it arrives. Go away and take your children. I feel bad for scaring you like this, but it would be much worse for me to let you come to harm. And harm is getting close. Heaven keep you safe." And just as quickly as he enters, the messenger exits. So now Lady Macduff needs to act out what she said, that she doesn't need her husband. She's going to find a way to survive on her own. And this is where I'm going to leave you so you can pick up, finish the scene, see how it ends, and you're also going to read scene 3. And again, I want us to see how these scenes help to develop Macbeth's character. We know that Macbeth is very ambitious, and although those apparitions told Macbeth that he had nothing to worry about, his ambition is so great that he's trying to do everything possible to cover all grounds. So again, how does this scene, as well as scene 3, help to develop those ideas? Macbeth's character and the theme of ambition. So you're going to pick up from here, and then you're going to complete the assignment for today.